Hello, good morning, and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Timothy Gianotti, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the president and acting provost here at the American Islamic College in Chicago. So we want to welcome all of our friends and neighbors who have come in person, and all of you who are joining us online, and even those of you who will be joining us asynchronously at some later time. We're very privileged and very excited to be here this morning with Dr. Shakeela Hassan and so many of our own colleagues, staff, and faculty here at the American Islamic College. So before we begin, as in all things, as a community, as a faith-based institution, as a community of faith, we begin by remembering the one whose merciful decree has allowed us to be here this morning. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, who is the loving nurturer of the creation and the all-compassionate, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, and all praise and all thanksgiving belongs to God, who is the sustainer and the orchestrator of all realities, of all worlds. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad, and we ask for God's blessings and salutations to be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad al-Mustafa, God's chosen and God's beloved, the one who was sent as Khatim al-Nabiyyin, the one who was sent to affirm and confirm what all the prophets before him brought and taught, and the one who was sent as nothing illa rahmatan lil alameen, as nothing but a token, an embodiment of God's love and God's mercy to everyone and to everything. We ask for God's blessings to be upon him. We ask for God's blessings to be upon his beloved family and all of his righteous and true companions. We ask for God's blessings and peace to be upon all of the messengers, those whose names we know and those whose names we do not know. We ask for God's blessings to be upon their families and their righteous and true companions. We ask for God's peace to be upon their communities, just as we ask for God's peace and blessing to be upon our community as we continue this important work and embark upon this important discussion about life-changing encounters, how God's benevolent and loving providence changes us and shapes us through our encounters with one another. And so we begin, after recognizing the love and the benevolent providence that allows us to be here, we begin also by acknowledging the land upon which we stand, upon which we sit, and in which we're having this conversation. Steeped in the Quranic and biblical values of creational stewardship and justice, all of us here at the American Islamic College acknowledge that God has entrusted the lands and the waters to humankind, who have been created to serve God and the creation as stewards or caretakers. We also uphold the Quranic teaching that we must stand for justice even when we ourselves are implicated. And so we begin today by acknowledging that our campus sits on land that was originally entrusted to the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, peoples whose sovereignty, culture, and very lives were violated by colonial policy, the same colonial policy that has enslaved, denigrated, oppressed, and persecuted our African American sisters and brothers for centuries. So here, just west of where land meets water, on the shores of Lake Michigan, we recognize the Historical Council of the Three Fires, the Confederated Nations of the Ottawa, Chippewa, and Potawatomi nations. We acknowledge and we honor them, their lands and their waterways, their descendants, whom we are blessed to count as our teachers, our students, our alumni, and our friends. Welcoming students of all faiths and backgrounds, the American Islamic College is a Chicago-based institution of higher education, grounded in Islamic values and steeped in Islam's rich and diverse intellectual and cultural traditions. We promote an appreciation for the scope and richness of Islamic history and civilization in the classroom and beyond through impactful teaching and informative public events highlighting Islam's intellectual, artistic, and cultural expressions. We offer a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Arts in Islamic Studies, as well as a Master of Divinity in Islamic Studies and Muslim Chaplaincy. In addition, every summer, we host a 10-week intensive Arabic Language Institute, which enables students to cover an entire year, that is 2 semesters, of academic and Quranic Arabic in just 10 weeks. Through rigorous scholarship and a commitment to social justice, the collective good, civic involvement, interfaith and intrafaith understanding, and intercultural engagement, AIC prepares students to become critical thinkers, visionary leaders, and responsible global citizens. I would now like to invite my colleague and friend, Romana Manzoor, who is our Director of Institutional Research and Effectiveness and also our accreditation liaison. I'd like to invite my sister Romana to come and to offer an introduction to Dr. Shakeela Hassan, with whom we'll be speaking today. Romana?
Assalamu alaikum. Can everyone hear me? Great. I have the honor of introducing Dr. Shakeela Hassan, who is very dear to me. Dr. Hassan, a University of Chicago professor emeritus of anesthesiology and critical care, has been making interfaith and intercultural connections since she arrived in Chicago as a young Muslim female physician from Hyderabad many decades ago. Naturally, intuitively, lovingly, she has embodied a lifelong commitment promoting peaceful coexistence and understanding between different faith communities and between different communities within the wide and diverse Muslim mosaic. Together with her late husband Zia, may God be merciful to him, she is one of the founders of the Islamic Foundation, and she has long served as a liaison between the Muslim community and the Archdiocese of Chicago. She has also served on the boards of the International Human Rights Law Institute, Chicago Theological Seminary, Catholic Theological Union, the Lutheran School of Theology, Karama, Muslim Women Lawyers for Human Rights, the International Museum of Muslim Culture, and Hands of Peace, which is a program for Palestinian and Israeli youth to come to know one another. In addition to all of these things, she is also a filmmaker and fundraiser of renown. Dr. Hassan's grassroots fundraising effort for the PBS documentary Muhammad, Legacy of a Prophet made it possible for it to be broadcasted on PBS in 2002. This effort involved fundraising trips to 40 of the 50 states of the USA. She was co-executive producer of, quote, Ties That Bind, which aired on WTTW in 2004. In partnership with noted journalist Bill Curtis, Hassan's Haran Productions Foundation created the Sounds of Faith concept, which showcases the connections between the sacred sounds and music of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. She also produced, again through Haran Productions, a 30-minute documentary on the sound of the Quran with David Christensen. Throughout all of these activities and achievements, Dr. Shakeela has made her interpersonal encounters the core of her life's work, activism, and continual commitment to learning. Some of these encounters will be explored and celebrated today. Finally, in the fall of 2022, the Hassan Institute for Interreligious Encounter was established here at AIC in honor of Dr. Shakeela and her late husband Zia. Committed to thoughtful, respectful, and socially impactful interreligious engagement, confident that religion can be a powerful force for social good, and inspired by a shared belief in the value of transformative, relational, experiential learning, the Hassan Institute was created to serve and enable meaningful, life-changing inter- and intra-religious encounters across the city of Chicago and beyond. The scope of the Hassan Institute's vision and activism includes research, teaching support, faculty fellowships, student internships, public lectures and workshops, community outreach, educational trips, and public programs for all the promotion of transformative encounters between diverse believers and faith communities. So we hope you can join us in energizing this initiative by signing up online with the Hassan Institute's Circle of Friends. You can also make a tax-deductible donation there at aicusa.edu/news/Hassan Hassan Institute. You can also see our website where there's an active link there, and you can look at our promotional material for more information. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Hassan, for being here. And I'll hand this over to President Dr. Timothy Gianotti.
Dr. Shakeela, you have remarked to me, in fact, often just so that everyone knows, sometimes when I'm talking to Dr. Shakeela, which happens with some frequency these days, but when I'm talking to Dr. Shakeela, sometimes I keep a notepad at my elbow, because sometimes what comes out of Dr. Shakeela's mouth is just so profound. And I remember early on in our conversations, you told me, you said, Timothy, the world is not just round, it is encounter-driven. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, I will add to it that it's not only encounter-driven, but it's energy-bound. It is propelled by energy, goes into circuits with energy, and produces more energy. This is what is the basic of my dream, which I didn't even know what it was, or my journey of encounters, is how do we call this humanity? And if I may interject a little thought, that I came to America in 1956 at the age of maybe 22, 23, I don't know, we don't talk about that today. And had no idea I was going to come here as a foreign student. We'll march along being told I'm a Muslim woman. They hadn't seen anybody my color, so they didn't know my name, so they celebrated it as tequila. I said, oh my God, it rhymes. But I didn't get offended that I don't drink. So this has been making me energized to face the world which I live today. We won't tell anybody how old I am, but what does it matter? The energy is there. And I think, as you said, encounter-driven, encounter-bound, and to produce that. And I thank you. I thank you and Romana for all that introduction. I don't know what I deserve, but I have lived it, so might as well talk about it.
Well, let's go back. I mean, I know that there's no proper place to begin. So we're just going to jump, as the Greeks used to say, in medias res, in the middle of things. So let's just go back to 1956. You're coming as a freshly minted physician to Chicago. You don't really know anyone. I remember you telling me that you took a Greyhound bus here from New York, because even from the commercials in India, you knew that the Greyhound let us do the driving. You had that jingle or that slogan in your mind. But it was very shortly after your arrival in Chicago that you met the man who would become your lifelong husband, Zia, may God be merciful to him. And Zia then took you, within weeks of knowing him, took you to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad right here in Chicago. So can you tell us a little bit about your encounter with Elijah and Clara Muhammad and how that all unfolded?
Well, I can just put it in few words. I landed in New York, but I didn't know about all of this cliche of boat people, but I literally arrived on a boat. And the boat was very fancy. It was Ile-de-France. It's historic. So I arrived in New York and looked at the Statue of Liberty with hope. What was I dreaming? I had no idea. I was in a phase. So I was learning my world. This was my encounter number one in that sense. And so, and I will fast forward, they offered us travel to the destination. I said, I want to take Greyhound bus. They were fascinated, confused that she speaks even English, and how does she know what this is? I said, take the driving, leave the driving to us, take the Greyhound bus. And I laughed. So he thought maybe in the kindergarten. So I wanted to tell him I never left it. So anyway, I came to Chicago and spent about 3 days in Northwestern Hospital for my internship that began, getting acquainted. And July 1st, When I entered the ward, it was a Sunday, and I was told we were facing polio epidemic. So they asked me if you know polio. I mean, the conversation was totally, you cannot fathom today. Do you know polio? No, I haven't met it, right? So I didn't write the script, so I just said, yes, I do. Okay, so fast forward, 1 month later, I was released from that duty. And 3 days later, I was celebrated as tequila, come for an emergency. And I go and knock, knock, and they open the door. The lights go on, and my goodness, it was such a drama and so scared after a whole day and night work and 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And they celebrated my name, and I could only deal with it like it does rhyme. And if I am in difficulty, nobody understands my accent or whatever I had, my mode of delivery, and this strange name, I can tell them, just say tequila, and I'm here, you know. So that began my journey of finding out how important it was for them to know what my religion was. And asked me, why? I won't go into it. It was too long. I don't know what kind of time they had to talk all that. And so I fast forwarded the goblets. So one bottle for 30, 40 big men, and that time there were only 2 women in medicine. I was one, and the second one didn't show up. So I thought, let them finish so that they don't ask me why you don't drink. Finally, I spoke the word religion. I said, it's because of my religion. So are you Mohammedan? I said, yes, obviously. You are Christian because you follow Christ. So I made them happy. Don't hurt your neighbors. So many things were coming into my system. And then they took me to the cafeteria, I have to say this, in the cafeteria where I ate 3 days free, and there's 2 days post-polio free. And they asked me, what would you like? So before I could say anything, one of them comes forward and says, how about hot dog? I said, I think it sounds horrible. They said, how about hamburger? I said, I don't eat ham. How about macaroni and cheese? I said, that's all I eat. So I got macaroni and cheese. And so many questions later, one of the people came and put his hand on my shoulders. And he and his wife became very dear friends. And he was Jewish. And he said to them, guys, I can't even remember his language, but he was very angry. And harassment I heard first at that place. And he said, don't harass her. She is my cousin. And she doesn't do anything that I do. I mean, I also follow the same customs. So my Jewish-Muslim dialogue started there. If this is not an encounter that has an impact, what can it be? You see? And tell me, where am I going?
So it was shortly after that you ran into Zia, right, who was just a graduate student at that time.
I didn't run into it. Everything had a process.
Okay.
And so the next thing that happened to me was somebody, in those days there was no beeper, no nothing. I don't know how we talked or how we did, but we functioned beautifully. So somebody came and said, doctor, you administrator wants to see you. He took some name, I can't remember. So I thought to myself, oh my goodness, it's not the principal who's calling me. What did I do wrong? When I arrived there, he was so, in superlatives, he was telling me, like, I came from somewhere and I worked so hard, never complained about food and didn't go here, there, whatever. I thanked him and I said, please, you don't need to say all of that because I came here to learn and do that, and I find myself fascinated with this. So he asked me, what do I do in my spare time? I laughed, and I said, well, now I will have it, so I will study for the next day and get some sleep. Then he said, I would like you to go to a get-together for foreign students. I said, I'm a foreign student. And he said, yeah, I would like you to go to IIT. I said, what is IIT? And he said, Illinois Institute of Technology, and it's a university. I never met a university which was acronym. So I was sent there, and I arrived not knowing what's going on. I don't even remember how many graduate students were there, and I was shown a table. So I sat down. I didn't know somebody would come and sit right in front of me, and that was Zia Hassan. All table was full.
The man that would later become your husband, yes.
Exactly. And somebody arrived like he is coming from some TV studio, all had a jacket and a tie and, as they call them, well dressed. I had no idea what that means. But he arrived and he sat down, and people were joking with him. And they were telling him that you are 3 minutes late, 5 minutes late. And that was telling me that's what you will hear the rest of your life. And he sat down, and whatever conversation we had, I don't even remember. He didn't ask me if I'm a Hindu or a Muslim, because if you come from India, he didn't even ask me where I was from. Probably he saw my brown demeanor, and he figured where I am from. And then he said, do you know there is a Pakistani student, Pakistani Independence Day celebration on the 15th of August. So it gives you a timeline. July 1st and August 15th, we go to University of Chicago International House. I didn't know I was going to spend my lifetime there. Okay. So I went there, and 30 people were there in the hall. One of the ambassadors, unfortunately, I forget the name, he came and talked. And then Zia said to me, do you know, this was very good function, but I'd like to ask you if you would come to meet Elijah Muhammad and brother Elijah Muhammad, he said, and sister Clara Muhammad. I didn't know how you call husband and wife, brother and sister, I didn't, because we didn't have this tradition. And he said, he added with great confidence that I have talked to them about you. Look at the time frame, and he has already talked to them. And he said, they are very keen to meet you. And you would really like to meet them.
Now, just let me interject. I think it's important to know that he later told you that he knew when he first met you that you were going to become his wife.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So,
but that was already working there.
Yeah, but you had no idea what his plan was.
No,
okay.
I had no idea. And I had no idea how come this person, whom I'm telling him that I never met a black person in my life. And anyway.
So he took you to the home of Elijah and Clara Muhammad.
Yes.
And what was that like?
Oh, you cannot imagine how it began. He comes up, and Helen Dulek, I'll never forget her. She was very fond of me, a local lady who was in charge of our things. And since there were only 2 women, she was very, very nice to us. So she came in my room and said, Shakeela, there is a young man at the door. He pulled up in a Cadillac, and he is, and he was going on. And all the nurses from the dorm were making fun of me, and I had no idea what was going on with my life. And so I went there, and there the gentleman opened the door, and it was a Cadillac. And after I got in, he looked very nervous for sitting in the Cadillac. And then he said, well, this is not my car. I only drive Chevrolet. and brother Elijah asked me to take his car because he didn't want me to pick you up in his Chevrolet. So I cannot tell you how happy I was when I got there. And we drove down from Evanston Hospital to Sheridan Road, Lakeshore Drive, going to Woodlawn Avenue. That's where we ended up living. So
yes.
I'm telling you, is this encounter or a map drawn to take you someplace?
Well, maybe it only looks like a map after the fact, and we look backwards. But
yes.
But in the moment, it was an encounter. So you arrive at Elijah and Clara Muhammad's home on Woodlawn, which was going to become your street
Yes.
after you married, that you didn't know at the time. And you were arriving in his car, in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's car. And so what was that like?
To this day, I have made it my conscious thought that comes to me is that I could go to somebody's house and I don't even know the door has a knob or a knocker. The reason I say that is that the doors were wide open, and so were both of their arms.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it must have been an impacted encounter that I remember like a photograph. And they came and they were giggling. Both of them had very giggly personality. I love that, And they came and gave me, brother came and said, "Assalamu alaikum, sister."
But just to be
Yeah.
clear, so brother, in all of Shakeela's reminiscences about Elijah Muhammad, always whenever she says brother, I know she's referring to Elijah Muhammad, and whenever she says sister like that, I know she's referring to his wife Clara.
So brother, then he took over the young man, who came with me, because he called him Dr. Ijaz's baby brother. Okay, till he was here. So he and sister just gave me pecks on my cheeks and didn't leave my hands and said, "Follow me." And then we just went there in the living room and then went, and always our conversation was on their dining table. And I felt, even though I was not complaining that I was discriminated or they treated me badly or they didn't understand me as a Muslim, they called me Mohammedan, I said, they don't know. So they will get to know me.
You
And
mean the they here is the general public, not
Thank you.
Elijah and
Yeah.
Clara Muhammad,
No,
right?
not
Yeah,
Elijah.
okay, right.
And I come to Elijah Muhammad's house. They said, "Assalamu alaikum." I said, "Wa alaikum salam." I didn't have to say anything because I was home, and as a customary thing. And so this, I believe, I have lived this long to say this was my first ever intra-faith encounter. Thank you for providing this opportunity. I couldn't say that before. Either I didn't feel comfortable. What am I trying to say? What does this mean? And I'm very selfishly oriented that I don't want to hurt other people's feeling or that, oh, this is my domain. I am talking. I am the expert. I am the genius. No, nothing. I'm a human being, just like all of you, any of you. And I felt blessed that I had my own intra-faith encounter. And I have lived to see that problem continuously, that 117 nationalities of Muslims live in America, how blessed we are where we are. And on top of it, Chicago is a very beautiful, rich city so let's make our encounters count, And
Now, this was a home that you were going to be in and out of all the time for the rest of your life, really, at least on Woodlawn. And I know that Zia's brother was already very close to Elijah Muhammad, and then Zia became very close to Elijah Muhammad, and you became very close to both Elijah and Clara Muhammad. So can you? And I know that Elijah Muhammad really enjoyed your challenging personality. So can you talk about some of your moments when you were asking him questions and challenging him?
I don't even have to call that reflection. Whenever the thought comes in my mind, how dare I ask that question? And how did I do that? And he encouraged it. If I may mimic him, please forgive me, he will put his hand there, he will giggle, and he'll say, "Dr. Shakeela Zia is looking," and he was never the kind that, "Stop it, are you crazy?" He would never did that. And so he knew, so he's looking at him, Elijah Muhammad looking at my husband and saying, "No, brother, it's okay. I want her to talk to me." So, okay. So I said, "Brother, can I say?"
Yeah, please, yeah.
And he was talking about God and coming, and God said this, and, and whatever he was doing. I said, "Excuse me, brother." Kindergarten hand went up. "Could you please tell me, how you can call Master Fard Muhammad, whosoever he was God. How did God come over here? Then I as if I was a budding Maulana of some sort. Only thing I remembered was Surah Ikhlas. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid, walam yulad, walam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. And I'm telling him, God is not born to anyone, and this. I said the translation. And he said, I know, but he was the messenger he brought. I said, messenger, I had seen in Evanston people going on the bike, taking a package somewhere. So he said, he laughed and he was so joyful. But he said, but he came to me, and there will be sisters sitting there saying, I met him. I met the messenger of Master Fard Muhammad in the alley. I brought him to introduce him to my husband. And brother's mother, Mother Marie, will be saying, my son is a good man. And he listened to it. So these things were overpowering to me. And my biggest fear was, and when brother told me that his name was Elijah Muhammad, I didn't question Elijah because I wasn't picturing what that meant or where it came from, because I knew his father was a Baptist minister, and that's where I heard the Starry Crown stuff, and got to know a little bit about it. And that's why I wrote the book on that. And so he said, he named me Muhammad. And I am, whatever, I can't remember if he ever said he's the prophet, but he just said, I am the messenger. And I said, you're telling me God came here and he made you Muhammad. So he looked at me and he didn't know what to say. Maybe he was thinking he was Muhammad because he was important messenger of God. And you don't have to think there are two people or same person named like that. So I really, literally, that night, I did not sleep. I even said to Zia, don't tell me that God comes over and says, you're Muhammad. I don't think brother thinks like that. And I added to it. So he said, it's okay, you worry too much, because he didn't want me to think about it, but I know he must have had a conversation too, but he didn't tell me that. And slowly I observed that he didn't say that. He did have one or two other discussions with me. Don't you think the person who brings the message is the messenger? I said, well, in English, that's what it translates to. And it can be anybody. It can be your teacher. It can be somebody who comes to talk to you, your parent. I mean, in my age, 23, 5, whatever, what else I knew about it? Like when somebody asks you to write a essay in the 5th grade, they say, write a story about a great man. I remember a classmate of mine writing, who's big, who's strong, who's athletic. That's a big man for them. And so I cannot tell you how impressed I was with his intelligence, with his integrity, and his style of teaching his followers. Because he often used this term, you tell me, how do I tell my people? But he wasn't asking me my advice, but he was talking to me eye to eye on a level. I don't want to say that I was the somebody that did that. I learned from him, not that I taught him. And every learning spree has a consequence of learning from one another. Thank you. It is brilliant that what you have thought about your vision.
So what I hear you saying is that, he never really spoke down to you as a woman or as
Never.
as an immigrant to America, that he spoke to you always as an equal, and he welcomed your questions even when they were tricky or difficult questions.
If I didn't have any question, he would be giggling. He'll be just simply giggling. That was his, just imagine a a head of the household sitting at the head table, and he's doing like this. So, and the people who were there, in fact, I would like to talk about one of his granddaughters, who became a very close friend of mine, is Halima, and she was the daughter of one of his daughters. And she was 6 years old when she saw me and my husband enter the door. And when she came over to visit me, she has visited me several times, and was sitting with me, and she said, "Do you know how many people were there in the house when you came?" I said, "I don't know. I mean, I was in big house, and there were people who brought us to the door, etc." So she said, no, fast forward. So I said, there were some children I heard in the kitchen, and there was one girl standing at the wall like that. So she said, that was me. And then she showed me her picture, and I have it in the book. And she said, I was 6 years old, and I had never seen two most beautiful people in the world. I had seen white people, I had seen our black people, but I never saw. I said, I had made it easy for her. I said, you mean the little bit more brown people, right? So she said, and she remembered that. And she grew up there in teenage. She was 6, just imagine, for all the span. And she used to serve on the tables because sister always had her grandchildren learn the table things. So when she was doing that, she said she always saw her grandpa's funny eyes and smile, always overjoyed when you spoke, she said to me.
You know, we could spend a week really talking just about your encounter with Elijah and Clara Muhammad.
I'd love to talk for a month.
And there are so many
Go
poignant passages from that time. I think it would be wonderful if two things. I'd like you to tell us the story of how you designed the iconic the fez or the cap that Elijah Muhammad wore, and then I'd also like you to just reflect on in your life, what impact do you think that lifelong relationship, because you were in and out of that house all the time. In fact, the first meal I had at your home was Auntie Clara's bean soup. Do you remember? You made that for me. And so it's clear that knowing Elijah and Clara Muhammad has had a profound influence upon your own life, and certainly upon Zia's, because you and Zia were in that house, in and out of that house all the time for decades, right? So maybe you can reflect upon two things then. The iconic fez, right? Okay. The story of that, and then on the larger issue, how you feel looking back, how that really helped to expand you or change you, or what did that encounter mean to you?
Okay. On December 18th, 1959, we got married, and we got married in IIT, where the same building where I took the elevator to go for that encounter, like as if I was designing it. And then that around the same time, Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his sons went to Pakistan. I can't exactly connect all the details without telling too much, so I'll just leave it there. And they were housed in a hotel, and then they used to come every day. They were there 3 days or 4 days, and they had 3 times dinner at Zia's home on Krishnanagar in Lahore. And my father-in-law was director of education, Punjab University, and obviously one of the sons who was doctor was here and knew Elijah Muhammad, who introduced him, introduced my husband to Elijah Muhammad. So they were all there except my husband, and who was becoming my husband, who was marrying me. So when they came back, we went to visit them, and 1960, and had a very good time. And sister ran up and came down with smile. She was just so beautiful, amazing. So when she came down, and she brought 2 little boxes, and I knew she has something there, and I was getting nervous. So she brought to me and said, open it, open it. So I opened both of them, opened the other one, and I did. So he said, oh, these are beautiful, sister. So she said, yeah, I thought you'd like it. So I said, they look very good on you. She said, no, you put them on and take one, and I'll wear the other one. So they were band
The
that
bracelet, yeah.
And then the following week or so, the phone rang in the morning, and Zia said to me that this was Sunday. He said, brother and sister want us to come down. So I said, okay. I think I had just come back from hospital. I was up all night. So I took a shower and we just went there. And we are sitting at the table, and he is having conversation with Zia that I'm going to have a big convention, and this was 1961 convention he's talking about. And he said, I don't think I should wear the black suit. I mean, I never heard that dialogue before. And so my husband's saying, yeah, black is too formal, like he's the genius advisor of some sort. And then Zia started talking to him, brother, you should try brown, and you should try, like he's telling him all his choices for the season, navy blue, and then it was brown, gray, etc. And they were having such a nice conversation. I wish I could be involved rather than sister and I talking about grandchildren and all this kind of thing. And till he took out one floppy hat, I call it, because I don't know what to call it, red, and he put it on the table in front of my husband, and he said, look at this, I don't like this, I want something different. I was listening because my mind was there. Maybe I was encountered to pay attention. And I said, sister, excuse me, I need to ask a question. So he said, go ahead. So I said, brother, that's not a fez. So he looked at me and said, then what do you call it? I call it a fez. So I ended up, I won't give the lecture here, but I started to say, I know what a fez looks like. It is like this, and it is like a flower pot, put it on the head, tall, red, and made with this material, that, all that kind of stuff. And he said, how do you know? I said, I know. Nizam of Hyderabad wore that hat, and my father has it, my brothers have it, etc. And so he said, what are you telling me? So I said, that thing doesn't look good on your head, brother. It's too flat. I'm trying to tell him, look taller. That's, So even though I didn't make it like that. And then he said, I don't know what you're talking about. So I said, sister, do you have a pad of paper? So sister ran and brought me a pad of paper and I drew the fez, which the book has the diagrams. And he looked at it and he said, what are those little things on it? So I said, that is decoration from Islamic arts. And
the stars and the moon
and then
the...
No, the little flowery decoration.
I see.
And then he said, what do you have there? What is that star and thing? So I said, that is, I understand, that is like a Islamic symbol. And you are a leader of the Islamic faith. So how about that? And he said, I don't get it. I said, the flag of 2 countries, red for Turkey and green for Pakistan, have that thing. Even though in nature, I had to put that thing in because I said, in nature, you'll never find a crescent with a star hanging out there. So he laughed with my words. And he said, yeah, okay. And there were no questions. No, we don't like all this. What is all this? Well, how are you going to get it? What not? He said, how do we do that? How do we make it? So I said, I will take care of it. And he looked at me, and he looked at Zia, and Zia never doubted me, and he just said, okay, we'll give it a try, or whatever he said, I don't remember. And we said, okay, we're done. No, so Zia said we have to take measurements. So nobody had a concept of having a that. So Zia asked for some kind of thick thread, he said. He didn't even say rope or something. So anyway, sister brought something, and Zia, if we could put the photograph, brother is sitting here. Zia has that
String around his head.
string around his head. And he wants to make sure not a millimeter is missed because of this way or that way. And sister is standing with his scissors. I didn't want to take the scissors for the head. And I am just making sure that everything is going well. And we had that. And Zia didn't let the edge go because it may, what do you call that?
May fray or
fray or something. And took a piece of tape and put it on and put it in his pocket. And in the car, he said to me, what are we doing with this? Not as a threat, but just such a gentle person, honestly. So I said, all we do is, we have time, go to Marshall Fields. What do we do in Marshall Fields? I said, we buy the fabric. I said, 4th floor fabrics. He said, you know what fabric? I said, velvet. So we go, park on Randolph Street, whatever, and we go up. And he looked at that. He said, oh, this is fabulous. So we saw lots of fabrics and the velvet. And I just opened that like that, and I said, looked at Zia's face just to laugh at him and show him that we can make a hat for you. So I bought more than that. So 3 hats that I got made. And one of them is still with me, and it goes to a history museum very soon. And he wore it, and I have it. And I used to buy the fabric and send it and get them made so that I always have it in stock. So I must have made 2-3 dozen, I don't remember. And we never talked about it. Cost, labor, procedure.
And the design was the design that you agreed upon that first day.
Yes, and it came in different versions.
Yeah.
With whatever. I told him you can, because those are very highly artistic people who do that embroidery. And I said, if you want to change something, go ahead. Sometimes they put too much flashy thing, but it's okay. Having on the doll that velvet made it such a classy thing. It to this day, it is. You have seen it in the first one.
So and again, there's so many stories to reminisce about and to reflect upon. But as you think now, your encounter with Clara and with Elijah, how do you think that has shaped you as a Muslim? How has that shaped you as a human being, you think?
I grew up in Hyderabad, and knowing what Nizam did, 70% of population was Hindu, and he was Muslim, and he never disregarded anybody's need for education. That was fantastic. And to see Elijah Muhammad's home doing the same things that as if he had a kingdom, because we had our own currency, own railway station, own airlines, own everything. And even the calendar was Farsi calendar, Persian calendar, Azur, Day, Beman, Sundar, like that. And, and the New Year, Nowruz, was Mukarram Jah's birthday, Mukarram Jah was the last Nizam of Hyderabad who just died last week. And his birthday was the same date. I mean, that date changes every time. So his birthday was 6th of October, and the day my birthday was the same. I was invited, but there were others who didn't have the same birthday because my father was working there. So we have pictures eating cake in their birthday and doing that. So I think, Elijah Muhammad had the facility to think about this because he wanted them to think about self-sufficiency. self-respect,
Mm.
self-reliance,
Mm.
what you are doing it. And he always made reprimands to his community members who were simply talking about how they were treated.
Mm.
He said, take responsibility.
Mm.
Do something. I know he had to use the language, like when he said devils and all this, I asked him, brother, if somebody is bad, why do we have to call them devil? As if I was his associate or a family member. I'm telling him, why do we have to? I still don't understand how I own that idea to go that way. But I'm not being apologetic. That was just as it happened. I'm grateful to God and to all the encounters in my life. And he would say, okay, sister, you tell me. They don't understand. And I'll add in here the Christmas. Ramadan. One day, again, the same thing happened when I arrived from the hospital after night call. My husband says, I got the call from brother, and sister was also there, and she said, both of you should come over. So fast forward, same routine, my husband checking with me because he never pushed me to do something, and we landed there. And by then, the relationship was so good in that sense that she always was talking to me saying, why you don't ask for something? Not questions, but like, what do you need? So she was in the kitchen, and brother went to the door and brought us in, and we sat at his table, and I got up and I said, may I go and talk to sister? So she said, go ahead. So I went up, and when I went there, I said, sister, you always say, ask for something. And today I'm very hungry. I did, because she asked me, how were you, how was the night call, and so on. So I said, I was very tired and whatever, I am hungry. And I never saw her do like that. And she got up and said, it is Ramadan, sister. I had never heard that even finer little thing in her voice. I was really, and I said, sister, a few months ago we fasted, so how it can be Ramadan? And she said, it is Ramadan, it is December. And by then, and she's putting cornflakes in the pot and preparing my tray, and I was so embarrassed I didn't know what to do. I said, please, don't. It's okay, it's Ramadan, that's okay. So brothers called me from the dining room. He had very sharp ears, and he said, come on here, doctor, come on, tell me, what's happening? So I went there. I said, sister, don't worry about it, please forgive me, and I'm going there. I said, we were talking about Ramadan, and I came and I asked for cereal because, I felt at home and I'm hungry. I worked all night, so I want cereal. So he said, that's okay, you can have. So he said, and he's enjoying it. He wants to know the details so he can laugh. So he said, what about Ramadan? I said, that's the same question I have. What about Ramadan? So he said, how do I tell my people to fast? What's the benefit and what is it? When they, look what they do in December. They are celebrating Christmas. Do they know do they all know what is Christmas about? So I wasn't going to discuss that, but he said, all the vision is all year long to spend money. And in the case of black man, I'm telling you, he said, they are not educated, they are not working hard, they don't have the income, they don't have a plan, and they want to celebrate Christmas by buying gifts from the money they didn't earn. I don't want them to just get drunk, have these things, and go to one another and do that, and they don't even know what they are doing because they are so drunk. So he was so offended with this whole idea. Exactly. And in the Muslim world, in the intra-faith thing that I talk about, they say, oh, these people are not Muslims because they celebrate Ramadan in December at Christmas, though they are celebrating Christmas. Don't even know, have never talked to them what you're celebrating, you're eating or not eating, and they are doing this. So I was so struck by that. So I said to brother, you know, brother, I think about it when I was 6 years old, and we had two aunts living in the same neighborhood, and the children used to get together in Ramadan, especially 4 o'clock in the morning, walking to one another's home and having Sar together. So I said that was our best time, and then we even played rummy before we prayed Fajr, and then whatever. So I said to him that when I was 6, 4, 5 even, I used to get up with the family so I could have special meal. And one of my aunts, who was a frequent visitor, you always get used to your youngest khala, the mother's sister. And I said she used to always come and tell me, because my stomach is gurgling at 11, 12 o'clock in the day, and it'll say, let's make it 2. If not 3 is too much, 2. And I'll give you something, eat fruit, this, that, no fighting with anybody, no bad things, and it is Ramadan. So I said, they groomed us for Ramadan in that way, in one way or the other.
By making the fast short and manageable at first, and then gradually letting you.
Yes,
I see.
Because for the child to get the idea of why you're fasting is more important, to be good.
So you saw brother doing the same thing with his American,
exactly,
African American community, that he was making Ramadan manageable for them.
Because December was the shortest days.
Yeah.
And otherwise in July, 10, 12 hours of fasting, it's and working and being civil is a challenge. So I had tremendous respect building in me that he was teaching people how they were encountered or built to learn. And that is the principle in education, that teach people the way they learn, and not just with one method that doesn't go in the head or soul, mind, heart, anywhere.
So you remember him really as a really transformative teacher, really, that he always treated you like an equal. He welcomed any question and every question. He was never offended by a question, and you got to glimpse his intention behind some of his teachings for his community.
I was fascinated more so in much more depth as I grew older, but even that time I was just transfixed into what he was saying. Like he used to use the words hypocrites. These hypocrites, it felt like bad 4-letter word to me because I didn't know. I wasn't calling anybody hypocrite, and I had no reason to. And then I don't want to say it because in my emotional state I may not say the exact words, but the way the definition he gave, I've written it in the book, is exactly like what it says in our scripture language. And that they are not trustworthy. You cannot trust their word. What they say, they don't deliver. And this is why he didn't like, and at that time there was a lot of fear that somebody was poisoning him, so he wanted to grow his own things. And Brother Emmanuel, Nathaniel.
And that's what started the farms and all the
grocery
infrastructure.
Store, bakery, and so many businesses.
Wow.
So he was building like a little Hyderabad in there in his own way. And this is where Winnie Sullivan has given it little thought to my growing up as a Muslim. And in that way, we had diversity at home. My father having spent time in London, and Hyderabad being a diverse town, and the how churches were built, the mandirs were built for Hindus, and mosques were built, and the education center was established. So to me, he was building something. And oh, yes, he did talk bad about, like, these, devils. White man is a devil. Then he'll turn around and tell them that now don't blame all on white man. What are you doing for yourself? But nobody heard that sentence.
You know, as you think, and I know that our time today is a little bit short, and we could spend the whole day just talking about these encounters. But I'd like to shift now, just for diversity, to talk about your friendship, your long-standing friendship with Rabbi Shalman. May God be merciful to him, who's now passed away, but who was really one of the cornerstones of the Chicago Jewish community. So how did you and Rabbi Shalman, and I'm sure that because they were both your friends, I'm sure that Rabbi Shalman and brother had a chance to interact and meet, or did they?
Not Elijah Muhammad, Farah Khan did.
Oh, I see. So the minister,
Yes.
and
Yes,
and
that's
Rabbi
very
Shalman.
nice.
Yeah.
That you remember that.
But let's talk about
Okay,
about
okay, I will.
Rabbi Shalman.
In about early 2000s, I was asked to serve on the visiting committee, or they called it board at that time, whatever, at CTS.
the Chicago Theological Seminary.
Dr. Suleiman Dang was visiting, and then Susan Thistlethwaite called me, and we all met, etc., and she asked me to serve there. And Susan Thistlethwaite is the wife of Dr. Thistlethwaite, who was the transplant surgeon, so I worked with him at the university as an anesthesiologist. So anyway, multiple connections. I'm saying that how everything connects you to something and makes it more profound it's not abstract anymore, it's real. So there I was serving, and Susan talked to me that they were going to have, because I don't know, whatever, I was doing these little things, my work with David Christensen. So she asked me to write up all those things because they were applying for a grant for a center in Rabbi Shalman's name.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, who's Rabbi Shalman? So he introduced me, and he came and laughed, and he said, I am Rabbi Shalman, and I teach here. So I looked at the booklet that was there, and I later asked Susan, I said, I want to enroll in his 2 classes, but I don't want to be graded. so what's wrong with you? I said, because I don't know, I may miss some classes. Moreover, I don't have time to study to do those papers well. She said, okay, you can just audit them. That's called audit. I said, thank you for that word. So I did. And there I got to know him. And he will always come and talk about something Islamic. And I wasn't that kind of a scholar that I had the language to connect all the stuff there, But he would ask me, and 17 or 19 students there were, and I was one. And this odd one is always getting to talk to something. And so I respected him, valued him very much. And he was so kind that he will say, Shakeela, you live down the street. So I said, yes, Rabbi Shalman. So he'll say, I want to drive you. And why would you drive me there? So he said, I parked there. So, that kind of funny that he'll walk with me to there. So he said, you live here? I said, please come in. And he said, yeah, I saw your husband going in and out. I wanted to meet him. So we met. And he was just amazing. He said he didn't interact too much with Muslims because he had no, so what's there to not meet somebody? And the way he taught, the way he behaved, the way he was, and it is amazing. I have done an interview on him, and that I have given it to Shalman Senior Center, or they have established at Rush for senior care, and they are going to use parts of it to introduce him, because it is so beautiful. I'd like any of you to go and see, because what he thought about sound, what rhythm and movement. Sound is sovereign. So his scriptural connotation or description or relevance is amazing. So I think that way. And Rabbi Shalman was the one who introduced me to Rabbi Zadek, who has become a iconic presence in Haran, and he has gone anywhere in any of the functions to play his shofar.
So, like brother and sister Clara, like brother Elijah Muhammad and sister Clara, Rabbi Shalman became a frequent visitor to your home and dined at your table many, many times. And
not so much dining. He's been to several meetings, and he says in the interview, "At your table with so many people around," like that, so you can get the glimpse of what he felt like it. I just don't like to say. And Rabbi Shalman, going forward, one day he called. I would go public with this because I don't go and talk about these things outside because it's no big deal. It's a human strength, human value, human quest, a journey to know one another. It is there inside. Don't fool yourself. You don't want to. You have to. And so he called me, and so did Minister Farah Khan, that they had a problem. It was not personal, but it was personal because of the entities they deal with, or whatever you want to call it. So they wanted to talk to me and talk to Zia, but they would directly call me, and I was the conveyor of the thing. So anyway, Zia and I decided to have it. We had a number of lunches for them.
at your home.
Yeah, at my home. And I cannot tell you, in the interest of being private, respectful, and didn't know what the agenda was or where it was going, and didn't question it, we did not record those things. But I invited my Haran board. I didn't want them to think that I was working with so-and-so and they didn't want to work with me or something like that. So they were all there from LSTC also, And so I got all of the people together, and I invited them, and he brought Imam Ismail with him, and he came, and his big limo came through the millimeter, in our driveway. And the man brought, and he went straight, zoomed out. I'll never forget that. And we had an excellent dialogue. Minister Farah Khan is extremely, what should I say? You can enjoy the conversation with him. He has the presence. He has the intelligence. And he can talk about music. He can talk about so many things. And he makes sense. But how things get happened in the public and what is understood or misunderstood is not my domain. And I think that was very interesting. And they both had such a good time talking about peace and justice. We all learned.
So our hour is kind of coming to a close, but I just want to give an opportunity for people online and people who are here, if there are any questions that you might ask. There are so many encounters that we did not touch on today. I know Muhammad Ali was in your home, and you knew Muhammad Ali. I know that there were so many people that came through your home and dined at your table and have come in and out of your life. And I'm sure that they can all speak to their encounter of you and their encounter with you, and how that opened their mind and shaped their own evolution. As
Muhammad Ali, I knew since the time he was teenager. He didn't come to my house, but it was more than plenty of meetings with him, or the celebrations that Herbert did of inviting Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles, and meeting them, going and shaking hands. I can't believe it that I did that. Okay, so because my husband was low-key and he didn't want, and he was there. He met them, but he doesn't talk about it like I do, But And it was amazing. And Muhammad Ali is phenomenal. And at Herbert's memorial, he came.
Herbert was also known as Jabir.
Jabir.
Is that right?
Oh, he was very close
Okay.
friend. And so he came in the wheelchair, and Zia and I was sitting, and Zia was on the corner, and I was sitting with somebody else. And so he came, and he just pulled up that, and in the middle of the aisle, he just sat there because nobody could move the champ to go to first row or something. He said, "I'm here. Okay. Hello, brother." And he just did that to Zia and just sat there. So what can I tell you? And I ate with Muhammad Ali at the table several times, and how he was so respectful to brother that it was just amazing grace to watch that. But then when he was given their open sign, and he got with his big self, and moved the bread on the table, etc. Sister, how gently she treated him like her own.
Sister Clara.
Sister
Yeah,
Clara.
yeah.
She's sitting next to me and looks at me like this, smiles, and gets up, goes around, and Muhammad Ali is sitting over there. Zia is there, and he goes there and says, brother, and she'll take the bread and put it with something else, some instrument, and just put it in the chicken. This is the bread plate.
So Sister Clara was very particular about table manners then.
Yes.
Yeah.
She didn't want the food all over her
Right,
tablecloth,
yeah,
so, And it was so gentle, loving, caring, and you just couldn't argue. And it was so sweet. And he'll say, thank you, my sister. Thank you, my sister.
Are there any questions for Dr. Shakeela, either online or in person? No? Okay, well, why don't you wrap us up then with a final, I guess, reflection on the importance of the human contact, the human encounter in learning. You and I talk a lot about experiential learning versus theoretical learning, and not to in any way devalue theoretical learning, but there's something that is maybe more palpable or more transformative about the human-to-human connection. So can you just reflect on your own appreciation for experiential human-to-human encounter in education?
I think you can learn lots of facts and figures in scriptures, in encyclopedias, in your classrooms. And our old-time professors with whom I have gone through, they thought that going there and transformative presentation was to put in more facts than anybody can muster. And even if they went to the library, I couldn't get it in my head. So I felt like experiential learning entails, that's why I got interested in documentaries and in filmmaking or presentations. And now we have those ways and means. We didn't have them. Like when I gave the TED talk, one of the students asked me, they were all pre-med students still there. So he said, Dr. Hassan, you have retired. I said, don't make me feel old. So he said, no, I want to know, how do you feel about this technical development coming in the world, and how does it add? I said, what is the most important thing I learned in my patient care? Please allow me to take your pulse.
Yeah. Oh.
So I took his pulse, and I said, doesn't that make you feel better already? So I said, the human touch, human voice, human interaction, how you speak is more healing than any medicine can buy. And any person can tell you a big thing, and unless it is done with emotion and energy. Energy doesn't mean you're hyper. I said energy is calming, soothing, taking you to peace, taking it to war too. So you have a choice. Use your brain. Takes two neurons to make one connection. I'm exaggerating and exacerbating to make this point, but it is simple as two neurons. And God has given this convoluted creature called brain, and people write in the books that has billions of neurons. Nobody commits to 5 billion or 100 billion or gives you a span. So it is so simple. So the simplicity is the elegance of everything. You know, I don't want to say that these are my personal traits or tributes or whatever, because every one of us is learning. And to me, a description of human is who is facing challenges. And he's not an animal. I don't know the animal psychology, so I can't tell you, but the more dogs I meet or hear about have more human traits than I can to count. So I think it's it's very simple. And if you commit to simplicity and take out factors like I have to be better than everybody to be good. No, you have a whole lifespan left in many different ways. Experience everything you can, everything you shall, everything you might have in your mind and store, dream, and it will be so much better. And that's why I have discovered, coming to this age, that I am not alone. I miss Zia so much that I cannot live a moment without him, but I am three to give me that strength. Me, I, and myself. I'm not saying to all of you that, or I can only ask you to please have mercy and in your thoughts, and be merciful to me that I'm not here to tell you I am somebody who is somebody who is somebody. I'm still trying to find who I am, why I am here. And to do that makes me to think about it. It makes me think of what more I can do while I have time. And if I can energize this one and all of you, then we have no problem not only getting this institute, but the university such as American University. I'm not here to do any commercial, but I'm sharing my thoughts that why it excites me with this idea of experiential learning, why cross-cultural, inter-educational, faith is what you make it to be. Faith is very simple, trusting God. I mean, to me, I with all due respect to every faith, I say, but what you do, your human behavior, your human encounters, your human energy, how it is invested, how it is protected, how it is preserved, how it is propelled, how it perpetuates is a prize like no other. I don't want to get emotional, but this is my plea to myself, because before I go and propose to other people, I need to do something. And I thank each and every human being that has encountered me, or I had the pleasure and blessing to be with, that has not, there is nobody who has not given me thoughts. Even they were critical, cutting, everything, but I never took it that way, because I felt like there's something to learn. After all, God made us human and a little bit less than perfection. And you know why we have 99 attributes of God? It's 100 minus 1. I had to ask that question to get the answer from a dear friend in England. Anyway, so why do we have 99 names? Why not 100? So he said, why are you asking me like that? I said, when I started my life in America, everything on sale was on $99.99. They will buy it. But $10, they won't buy it. So he said, it's 100 minus 1. So I think, did I answer your question? I get very...
You know, I think that that these are questions to ponder and not necessarily to
Yes.
answer definitively, but I think that you've answered it in so many ways that just like with medicine, that the human contact makes a qualitative difference in the healing process. It sounds to me as if in your journey of learning, it's been not the books, but it's been the people that have embodied the faiths and the teachings that you've encountered. It's the people who have really taught you what their faith and their life and their philosophy and their what was really important. And so I'd like to just close with your story about the Catholic nuns, if you could. And then we'll this is like the last encounter we'll talk about today, but it's an encounter that comes up with Dr. Shakeela again and again and again, what she's learned from the Catholic nuns. And so can you just tell us, this was early on in your medical career, and you can just take us there and tell us about that encounter, and this will be our final encounter to ponder for today.
I learned so much in the Catholic hospital that I was working. And because University of Chicago gave me the position, but asked me to wait for 2-3 years, so I worked somewhere. St. Mary of Nazareth Hospital. And I wasn't married then, and I had a room in the nurses' dormitory. There are two happens to be there, were very prominent in my head. So the nun used to come and knock on the door. Knock, knock. She'll say that too after doing that. Time for mass, doctor, 5 o'clock. Oh, is that sharp voice and everything. So I'll get up and go to the little chapel. It's a very beautiful chapel that they have refurbished it. I was there for something spiritual journey. They filmed there with me, and I recommend all of us to go there and see. And so I went and sat there. Well, it's a hospital, so there were not that many people. The nuns were there, and they are going with this, and it's a Latin service, because in the Polish enclaves, that's what exactly it was going on. And I felt like I shouldn't even cough or sneeze because their concentration. This is the first time I noticed that what prayer engrossment was. They were not there. So I had to get there, and I got there by myself because I was thinking of all the ayahs from the Quran that I recite in the Quran. Yeah, I mean in my prayer. And I was doing that. So my Arabic is going on there, the Latin is going on there. These have been building the thoughts on sound, rhythm, and movement are the basics that define us, connect us to God and to one another. That's what is the theme for my survival. But the other funny thing that happened is, allow me to create the scene in the delivery room. And I was an intern, so they put me to work in the delivery room, and I was there. And a Polish doctor, may God be merciful to him, he was about this big, must be at least 300 plus pounds. And the patient was on the table. I don't want to be gross here, but the nun is on the side here, and she is doing the rosary, and he is screaming at the patient to do her job, and so he can deliver the baby. I don't want to say that. And I don't know, as a little intern in the back, so somehow I got in there and got the baby and put the baby here, and I'm making it cry, and the nun takes her rosary down and says, "Doctor, we don't do like that. It is sterile." You know, so she's doing her job. So I said, "It's okay, sister. The kid was so inside, so protected. Now he's crying, so I'm trying to make it feel better." So when I had her chance to talk to her, I was very confused. What is this? Both of them have their eyes closed, and who do you think is the where the child is coming from. So I went out, when I saw her standing there, which I never see the nuns sit down or have a break. So when I saw her, she wasn't taking a break, she was doing something. And so she put her pen down and said, "Come on, dear, you're so beautiful." I said, "Yeah, you're very beautiful to me. I love you, respect you. So I learned so much from you." So she put her hand on my back and said, "Okay, let's sit down. What do you want?" I said, "I'd like to ask you a question." So I created that scene for her. I said, "Dr. Shipinski was kind of bad, rude to the patient, and you were praying, and I didn't know what to do. Did I do the right thing?" And so always blaming myself. So she said, "Doctor, I was praying for Dr. Shipinski." So he said a few other things. But so that told me how to cool down. If somebody is criticizing you and never paying you attention, and whatever you do, telling me I'm ahead of time, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, is just pray for them. And that builds your peace inside, not to ever have hatred about anybody. Because they are guided by whatever they are inadvertently encountering or being, they're not being themselves. And I even have kind of a merciful thought in the same way, like I learned from this nun, is that there are certain cultural hang-ups we carry. That's not religion, to me. Allow me to say that. I'm saying it for myself. I don't want to say it to anybody. So this is my story about my Catholic background.
So as Dr. Shakeela has reflected upon that experience, she said whenever there were abusive doctors in the operating room or people who were behaving abusively in her life, she was always taken back to that experience in the delivery room with the nuns. And so what the nuns taught her that day has stayed with her for the rest of her life. It's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Dr. Shakeela for blessing us with the barakah, of her stories and her presence. And I want to thank my AIC team here, everyone, from the setup to the AV to the coffee and tea in the hallway, which you're all very welcome to enjoy. And I'd like to thank everyone who is viewing this from a distance, whether it's now or later, seeing the recording. We're just so blessed and privileged to have you here. We're so blessed and privileged to have this new Hassan Institute for Interfaith Encounter here at the American Islamic College, and we look forward to continuing the conversations, inshallah. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.